Hello there, I'm John Stewart. For those who do not know me, I've tried to support First Lutheran Church for some time now, after serving for a couple decades as a pastor in other positions while working with various support organizations for military veterans and their families. I'm temporarily out of state at the moment when my wife is undergoing treatment for cancer. I just completed my cancer treatment myself down in Florida before we came up. Obviously, the barbershops have not reopened here yet, so you have to excuse my appearance. And we are going to be selling our home here starting tomorrow, putting it up for sale, and hopefully being able to return back to Citrus County permanently and work in the church and other places there supporting our veterans. For your info, I'm a retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant with nearly 27 years of active duty service, and because of my volunteer service for nearly 30 years, I'm a 2016 inductee into the Florida Veterans Hall of Fame. As you know, Memorial Day was established to recognize, honor, and remember the millions of military veterans who sacrificed everything for our freedoms. And I'd like to tell you about a couple of those heroes and their sacrifices. But keep in mind that Jesus Christ made similar sacrifices for us. And I'll also talk briefly about his sacrifices in a few minutes. The first veteran I'd like to talk about is an American soldier who believed in Jesus Christ even as he found himself in the heat of battle during the Korean War. He was on Heartbreak Ridge. It was one of the worst places to be during that war. In 1 month of battle, in that small place, there were over 3,700 American and French casualties, and an estimated 25,000 North Korean and Chinese casualties. And during the battle, an American soldier was badly hurt when he was shot by a sniper and fell to the ground. Unfortunately, his buddies were in a foxhole about 50 yards away. And the sniper gunfire was too intense to be able to crawl out and save their wounded friend. It would mean almost certain death for anybody to even try to do so. But the men in the foxhole could hear their wounded friend screaming, "Help me, help me, please God help me." And while the bullets whizzed overhead, one of the soldiers in the foxhole began to stare and stare and stare at his watch. Couldn't keep his eyes off that watch. And everyone in the foxhole noticed this and began to ask him, what the heck was he doing? But he never answered. And as bullets whizzed overhead, the soldier simply lay there in the foxhole looking at that darn watch. All of a sudden, the man with the watch jumped out of the foxhole and ran at 50 yards to the side of his wounded buddy through a hail of bullets. He grabbed his friend by the collar and very slowly began dragging him back to the safety of the foxhole, all while snipers continued to fire. Amazingly, both made it back to the foxhole without getting shot, and they began treating their friend for his wounds. It was a true miracle. Neither had been killed. And after the sniper fire had died down, the man had saved his buddy was asked why he waited so long to crawl after his wounded friend, and what was the deal with looking at that watch. And this is what he said. When I left for this war, my mom said every day, at the exact same time every day, she would be praying for me. And according to my watch, I left that foxhole exactly at the time of day when she started praying. An unbelievable true story of faith and belief in God's protection. And now you and I may not always receive answers to prayers in such dramatic fashion, but we have God's promise that the ultimate victory in this world, the one which guarantees us eternity with Him, is ours through our Lord Jesus Christ. It seems in every war and every battle, almost without exception, such heroic actions occur. Sometimes from individuals you would least expect it to see from. In a small Middle Eastern country nearly 2,000 years ago, that's exactly what happened. His name was Jesus, son of Joseph the carpenter. The scriptures give us little or nothing to go about his early life as a child. We only know a few things, such as the familiar Christmas story with the 3 wise men and the time when Jesus stayed behind at the temple as a child, and after 3 days, Mary and Joseph had to go find him. After that point in Jesus' life, there was a huge jump in time to his adult life and ministry. But really, who would have expected such heroic action from this man? The prophet Isaiah tells us there's nothing about Jesus physically which would have hinted at the possibility of such heroics. We like to picture our heroes as big, brawny, handsome action figures like Pastor Beaverson or some of our church elders. Jesus was not such a figure, but similar to many heroes of present day, he also gave himself for others. Jesus put himself in harm's way. He endured pain and suffering for you and me. Matthew records in his gospel, not once, but twice, that Jesus responded to the pain and suffering he was about to endure with the following words: "Not my will, Father, but yours be done." Just as in the case of the soldier of my earlier story, Jesus willingly endured this pain and suffering and sacrificed on behalf of his people. Christ died for us. But there is somewhat of a difference between Jesus Christ and our veteran sacrifices. The men and the women of our military put their lives in danger for their fellow soldiers and our great country against horrible human beings. The battle Christ waged was against something far more powerful and devastating. His victory was not the taking of some important hilltop or even one country or another. His was one which secured our very souls. His was the victory over the power of the devil and of sin in our lives, and ultimately the victory over death. And the clearest, most dynamic example of how Christ's life and death and bravery and resurrection inspired his people is the fact that we are able to gather here today as believers and hear the word of God in freedom. But remember, that freedom is being preserved and protected by our veterans, millions of whom have died for us just as Jesus Christ did. For our lost veterans, Memorial Day is set aside to remember their sacrifices. Around the world, we see terrible people trying to harm men, women, and sadly, even children. And our military heroes step forward to save them. Let me tell you about one of those heroes. His name was Mark Allen Lee. He was a Navy SEAL in Iraq. His mother is a good friend of mine and has a national volunteer organization supporting veterans. I'd like to read you a portion of a letter Mark wrote to his family while he was over there serving in Iraq around the 4th of July a few years ago. It'll make you feel proud. It'll make you sad. It should make you want to do something. Here's what Mark wrote. "I have seen war. I've seen death, the sorrow that encompasses your entire being as a man breathes his last. I can only pray and hope that none of you will ever have to experience some of these things I've seen here and felt. I have felt fear. I have felt adrenaline pump through my veins, making me seem invincible. Most of what I've seen here I will never really mention or speak of, only due to the nature of those involved. I have seen a man give his food to a hungry child and family. Today I saw a hospital that most of us would refuse to receive treatment from. The filth and smell would not allow most of us to be able to stand to enter, let alone get medicine from them. I've seen amazing things happen here. However, I've seen the sad part of war too. I've seen the morals of a man who cares nothing of human life. I've seen hate towards a nation's people who have never committed a wrong except being born of a third world, ill-educated and ignorant to Western civilization. I try to do my part over here, but the truth is, over there, United States, I do nothing but take. Ask yourself, when was the last time you donated clothes that you hadn't worn out? When was the last time you paid for a random stranger's cup of coffee, meal, or maybe even a tank of gas? When was the last time you helped a person with the groceries into or out of their car? Think to yourself and wonder what it would feel like if when the bill came for the meal you just consumed and the waitress tells you it's already paid for. More random acts of kindness like this would change our country and our reputation as a country. It is not unknown to most of us that the rest of the world looks at us with doubt towards our humanity and morals. I am not here to preach or say, look at me, because I am just as flawed as the next person. I find that being here makes me realize the great country we have and the obligation we have to keep it that way. The 4th of July has come and gone. I have received many emails thanking me for helping keep America great and free. I take no credit for the career path I have chosen. I can only give it to those who are reading this at home, because each one of you has contributed to me and who I am. However, what I do over here is only a small percent of what keeps our country great. I think the truth to our greatness is each other. Purity, morals, and kindness passed down to each generation through example. So to all my friends and family, do me a favor and pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life to each other, so that when your children come into contact with a great conflict that we are now faced with here in Iraq, that they are people of humanity, of pure motives, of compassion. This is our real part to keep America free. Happy 4th. Love you. Mark Lee. P.S. Halfway through the deployment. Can't wait to see all your faces. Unfortunately, never saw their faces. Less than 2 weeks later, after writing that letter, Mark was the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq. You live in freedom because of heroes like Mark, who sacrificed all. That is fact, not fable. Remember their sacrifices and care for them after battle, not just on Memorial Day, but every day. In doing so, I hope you'll remember some of Mark Allen Lee's words. I'd like to add to Mark's comments my own humble questions for you today. When was the last time you did something to help a veteran and his family? When was the last time you were in a store like Walmart or Lowe's and saw a veteran with a hat or a shirt or a jacket depicting their service to America, and you walked up and said, "Thank you. Thank you for your service"? Other than Memorial Day, when was the last time you visited Bushnell National Cemetery to honor and remember our fallen heroes? When was the last time? More importantly, when is your next time? Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor to speak to you, and I send my prayers during this time of the virus situation. I pray that each and every one of you will remain safe and healthy until normalcy returns to our great country and around the world. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you on this Memorial Day of honor for America's heroes. May God bless America and our troops in harm's way.